all love Instagram, right? Connecting with friends, sharing cool stuff, and just, scrolling. But sometimes it feels like we're giving up a bit of our privacy for all that fun.
Yeah, it's a trade-off we're all navigating.
Exactly. So today we're going to deep dive into a guide that's packed with 7 surprisingly simple tips to boost your Instagram privacy.
Ooh, I like that. Boost your Instagram privacy.
You ready to unlock that secret menu?
I am so ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so the first tip is a classic. It's switching to a private account. We've all seen that option, but it's worth revisiting.
It really is, especially if you haven't made the switch yet.
Right. So can you break down why this is such a fundamental step? Like, what's the big deal?
Well, think of it this way. A private account lets you choose exactly who sees your posts.
Okay, so it's like a VIP list.
Exactly. You're curating a more exclusive audience for your content. No more random strangers peering into your world.
I like that. So it's not about shutting everyone out. It's about being more intentional. Okay, love it. Now, this next tip gets a little more into the weeds. It's the connection between Instagram and Facebook.
Ah, yes, the automatic sharing.
Yeah, a lot of people might not even realize this is happening in the background.
Right, and it can be a bit of a privacy pitfall if you're not careful.
So, like, what kind of pitfalls are we talking about here?
Well, if you have your accounts linked, what you post on Instagram can automatically get shared on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Now, this might be fine for some people, but your audiences on these platforms might be totally different, right?
Totally different, for sure.
Like maybe you're comfortable sharing those goofy selfies with your Instagram friends, but
But not with your boss.
exactly.
Yeah, it makes sense. So having that separation is key.
It's all about audience segmentation, different platforms, different connections.
And that leads us nicely into tip number 3, which is the close friends list.
I love this feature.
It's a good one. It's like having a VIP section just for your closest pals.
Yes. So tell me more about how this works. Well, imagine you want to share something a bit more personal, like a behind-the-scenes glimpse of a project or maybe a vulnerable post about a challenge you're facing. You might not want to broadcast that to your entire follower list, right?
Right.
But you do want to share it with a select group of trusted friends. That's where the close friends list comes in. You create the smaller, more intimate circle within your larger network.
So it's like having different levels of sharing, like public, private, and then this inner circle.
Exactly.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about controlling our audience, being mindful of connections. Now, this next tip deals with a bit of a tougher reality.
Yeah.
Sometimes Instagram can be a breeding ground for negativity.
Yeah, that's true.
What can we do when we need to protect ourselves from those vibes?
Well, thankfully, Instagram gives you some tools to curate your experience. You can actually choose to hide your stories and live broadcasts from specific people.
Really?
Yes, so if there are certain individuals who tend to bring negativity or drama, you can simply block them from seeing that content.
So it's like a preemptive strike against the drama.
It's about protecting your digital well-being, being proactive about the energy you allow into your online space.
That's so important. It's like setting boundaries in the online world. We do it in our offline lives,
Yeah,
right? So why not online too?
exactly. It's all connected.
Okay, so we've covered controlling our audience, being mindful of connections, and creating safer spaces.
And that brings us to the next 2 tips, which are all about taking control of your online presence and reclaiming a sense of peace.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Oh,
Disappearing acts, I'm all ears.
all right. So tip number 5 tackles the activity status.
You mean that little green dot?
Yeah, that's the one that shows others you're online, but you can actually turn that off.
I've seen that, but I never really thought about why someone would want to.
It's all about managing those expectations, that feeling of needing to be constantly available.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
So when you disable that activity status, people can't see when you were last on the app. So they won't know if you've seen their messages yet or not. It just takes the pressure off needing to respond immediately.
Oh, I see. So you can just check in on your own time.
Exactly, without feeling like you're being watched.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
especially for people who feel overwhelmed by, all those notifications.
Right. It's all about reclaiming that control.
And it ties into a broader theme of setting those digital boundaries, which we'll be exploring more with our last tip.
Looking forward to it.
But first, let's disappear a little further with tip number 6, turning off read receipts.
Ah, those little blue check marks.
I know, right? They can be a little anxiety-inducing.
They really can, because think about the psychology behind them. They create that sense of urgency and accountability.
Yeah, like, they know I've seen it, now I have to respond.
Exactly. But what if you want the freedom to read a message and just think it over before replying?
Yeah, sometimes you need a minute to process.
Exactly. So disabling read receipts allows you to do just that. You can read it digest it and respond when you're ready.
No pressure?
It's like taking back control of the conversation pace.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground going, private managing connections, hiding content from certain people, and even becoming invisible in terms of activity and read receipts. What's our final tip for reclaiming our digital peace?
This last one might be the most empowering of all. It's all about setting those clear boundaries with the limit interactions feature.
Now, I've heard of this, but haven't really had to use it. What kind of situations would this be helpful for?
So imagine you're dealing with someone who's being a bit too persistent, maybe sending tons of messages constantly requesting to follow you, or even leaving inappropriate comments.
Ugh, that's the worst.
It is, and instead of blocking them outright, which can sometimes escalate things, you can use this limit interactions feature to kind of quietly filter out their attempts to contact you.
So it's like a more subtle way of managing that unwanted attention.
Precisely, their messages will go into a separate request folder, their comments will be hidden from others, and you'll just receive fewer notifications from them.
It's like creating a buffer zone.
Exactly, giving you that space to assess the situation and decide how you want to proceed.
That's brilliant. Okay, so we've gone through all 7 tips. Controlling our audience, managing connections, hiding content, becoming invisible, and even setting those firm boundaries. It's incredible how many tools Instagram actually provides for us.
It is, and that's exactly the point of this deep dive, to empower you with the knowledge and the tools to navigate Instagram on your own terms.
So it's not just about consuming content, it's about creating an experience.
Exactly, becoming an active participant in shaping a digital experience that feels safe, comfortable, and aligned with your privacy preferences.
We often just go with the flow and accept those default settings.
We do, and that's why it's so valuable to actually take the time to explore these options and make choices that really reflect your individual needs.
Be a conscious user.
Exactly, not just a passive participant.
Okay, so with all this newfound knowledge about Instagram privacy, what are some key takeaways you want our listener to remember?
Yeah, it really is like discovering this whole secret menu of features.
It's like Instagram's hidden superpower.
Exactly. And it's all about taking control and making it work for you.
So as our listeners start to think about putting these tips into action, what's the most important thing you want them to remember?
Well, I think the key takeaway here is that there's no right or wrong way to approach your Instagram privacy.
Okay, so it's not one size fits all.
Exactly. It's about finding what feels right for you personally.
So like what might that look like for someone?
Well, maybe you're totally fine with a public account, but you want to be more careful about who sees your stories. Or maybe you're ready to go completely private and have that smaller, more intimate online space.
So it's all about tuning it to your comfort level.
Exactly. And remember, your privacy needs, they might change over time. So don't be afraid to revisit those settings. Experiment, adjust as you go. What feels right today might be different tomorrow.
So it's not a one-time thing, it's an ongoing process.
Precisely. It's like having a toolbox full of options. You can choose the right tool for the right situation.
I like that analogy. And as you start experimenting with these features, I'm curious what aspects of your Instagram privacy will you prioritize?
Yeah. Will you focus on controlling your audience, setting boundaries with specific people, or maybe taking a break from that pressure of being constantly visible?
Yeah. And how do you think these changes will impact your overall experience on the app?
It's an interesting question to consider, right? Because you're essentially creating the kind of digital space that feels most authentic and safe and fulfilling for you.
It's like taking back your digital power.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Instagram privacy.
It's been a good one.
It has big thanks to you for sharing all of these awesome tips and insights.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to explore those settings, experiment a little, and most importantly, enjoy a more mindful and intentional Instagram experience. We'll catch you in the next deep dive.